Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my review of the death battle between Venom and Bane. For those of you that have seen my previous reviews, this and all future reviews will be quite different. I have updated the format of these reviews to better match the quality and style of my most recent prediction video. I want these videos to be a sort of follow-up to my prediction videos, with the focus being on both what I got right and wrong in said predictions, and also what I learned from both a research and critical analysis standpoint. In short, this video will consist of me going over what I got wrong in my prediction, what I got right, and then what I learned. Let's begin. First, what I got wrong. I did not locate the specific feats that Death Battle mentioned about Venom and Bane's strength, specifically the Ferris wheel feat and the armored car feat. However, I wouldn't really count those against me because I'm not Death Battle. I have neither the time nor the resources to research and locate every single impressive thing that these characters have done in less than 3 weeks. I can find many feats and do a decent job of finding out what characters can do, but I can't find everything. And I think that's okay. It's only a fault on my part if I miss extremely important feats. Feats that are game changers, ones that could win or lose a death battle. And I don't think I missed any such feats this time around. With the Ferris wheel feat, I had already established that Venom could match Spider-Man in strength, and I showed how Spider-Man could hold up a 46-story building. So it makes sense that Venom could hold up similarly large structures, such as a Ferris wheel. So that feat falls neatly into the parameters that I set for Venom. As for the armored car feat, I brought up that Bane could lift large boulders, and boulders are extraordinarily heavy. Most large boulders typically weigh more than most cars. So the armored car feat also falls into the parameters that I set for Bane. So while I did not locate the specific feats that Death Battle mentioned, I did locate sufficiently similar feats that I don't think this counts as a failing on my part. However, it was with regards to my analysis that I failed. There were several ways in which my analysis was compromised, and I will go over each one, but they were all caused by the same problem, and that problem was that I was biased. I thought that Venom was the cooler character, and despite my best efforts to be objective, I ended up warping facts and dismissing feats in favor of Venom. I didn't mean to do this. I didn't even know I was doing it. That's just how subtle and conniving a forced bias can be. You'd think that after all my time with Death Battle, I would have gotten to the point where bias can no longer manipulate me, but nope. Thankfully, I realized my mistakes, and I'm here to rectify them. The first was with regards to Venom and Bane's feats of being hit by Hulk and Superman respectively. When I first heard these feats, I intended to have a point in my prediction video where I brought up these feats and then dismissed them. I was going to say something along the lines of how both Hulk and Superman's power varies wildly, thus there's no way to really know how impressive these feats are, therefore we should just dismiss them. However, if you watch my prediction video, you'll know that's not quite how I ended up presenting them. I brought up Venom's feat of being hit by Hulk, and while I didn't place any extra significance upon it, I didn't dismiss it either. But when I got to Bane's feats of being hit by Superman, I spent extensive time dismantling those feats and trying to convince you that they meant nothing. This was a clear sign of bias on my part. But there's another problem here, which is that my entire approach to these particular feats was flawed, because I forgot one of the guiding principles of Death Battle, which is that we are to present these characters at their maximum potential. And I did not do that for either of them. I knew that when Hulk and Superman are at their best, their attacks can destroy planets, but I somehow managed to convince myself that that didn't matter. I depicted these feats in the worst light possible and dismissed them when I should have shown them in the best light possible and emphasized them, because that is the only way to do these characters justice, and that is of the utmost importance when it comes to Death Battle. Another way that my analysis failed was with regards to the fact that I went into little to no detail about how strong Bane is while on Venom. This is partially another symptom of my bias, as I went into extensive detail about the scope of Venom's strength, whereas all I said about Bane was that he could lift large boulders. But there's another problem here as well. Some feats don't require extra explanation because what they mean is obvious. For example, I pointed out that Venom took a hit from an anti-tank missile and survived. The meaning of this feat is clear. Venom survived getting hit by a missile designed to destroy tanks, ergo, he is more durable than a tank. You can understand the entirety of what there is to know about this feat after hearing that one sentence. Thus, I don't need to go into any more detail about it. But with Bane's feat of lifting large boulders, that doesn't really tell you much of anything. You don't hear that and go, aha, now I completely understand the limits and capabilities of Bane. Like, no, that's not enough information. I either needed to give you more feats that were more relatable, such as Bane lifting cars or tanks or something, or I needed to go into more detail about how impressive it is to lift large boulders. As it stands, pretty much all I told you about Bane's strength was that he could lift heavy things, and considering how important Bane's strength is, both for the death battle and his character, it is unacceptable for me to not go into extensive detail about it. So I'm going to do that right now. Rock is an incredibly heavy substance, to the point that if you had a boulder the size and shape of a normal car, it'll weigh many times more than that normal car. For example, you may recall back in the death battle between Lara Croft and Nathan Drake, that Nathan moved a moderately large boulder. Now that boulder wasn't too crazy big, but it turns out that even at that size, it already weighed 20 tons. And Bane has moved boulders larger than that. And Bane didn't just push the boulders, he lifted them over his head, which is a lot harder. Just eyeballing this rock, I likely would have said that to lift it, Bane's strength would have had to be in the vicinity of 25 tons, which is bonkers. That's enough strength to bench press 5 school buses. So Bane is very strong, and that whole segment should have been in my prediction video. Now, that's just about everything I got wrong. Now for what I got right. This death battle was pretty important to me. Not because I particularly cared about the characters involved, but because this episode was to be a sort of test of my critical analysis and research capabilities. And if it were a test, I'd say I passed. I would not say I passed with flying colors. I would only say that if I hadn't made all the mistakes that I just went over. However, as it stands, I'd say I did an okay job. With regards to research, I think I did pretty good. I located and then showed you guys all of the feats that we needed to see in order to make an educated and accurate prediction of this death battle. And while my critical analysis of those feats had some serious flaws, I did still manage to reach the correct conclusions. Most, if not all, of the reasons they listed for why Venom should win, I also listed. Specifically his superior strength, speed, versatility, and regeneration. And lastly, I almost got the pun right. Looks like Venom was his Bane.
Looks like Venom was the real Bane of this fight.
So close! So close! Alright, now for what I learned. This isn't about what I learned about the characters or anything like that. This is about what I learned from a critical analysis and research standpoint. First and foremost, the biggest thing I learned in this episode is that bias continues to be a force that is capable of influencing me. And this is despite the fact that I had little to no investment in this fight. Like, I barely knew who Venom and Bane were at the start of this, and yet I still managed to find a way to be biased about it. And that's just not acceptable. As such, I will be taking a variety of steps to ensure that I do not fall for bias in the future. For one, in future prediction videos, I am going to comb over my script repeatedly to ensure that I treat both characters equally. Like, if I go into extensive detail about strength feats for one character, then I'm going to go into equally extensive detail about strength feats for the other character, and so on and so forth. Another step I'm going to be taking is in the form of these videos. By showing and explaining my reasoning in prediction videos, and then following that up with these review videos that explore and demonstrate just how flawed and inaccurate my reasoning was, that provides a massive incentive for me to just get it right the first time. Because let me tell you, writing the script for this video was painful, because I literally had to write 3 pages entirely devoted to just describing how flawed and awful my reasoning was. And that felt terrible. That's like getting an essay prompt in English class titled "Why You Suck" and then having to read it in front of the class. That feels bad. So via you guys and these videos, I'm going to be staying on the straight and narrow when it comes to bias, because it is just too embarrassing to do anything less. The second thing I learned was the importance of clarifying vague feats. I need to make sure that all the feats that I list are clear, and if they require extra clarification, I will do that. This isn't some grand epiphany or anything. This is actually a very basic part of research and analysis. Find feat, explain feat. But knowing your basics is arguably the most important part of any pursuit, so I'll make sure to thoroughly explain vague feats in the future. And the last thing I learned this episode was the importance of depicting characters in the best light possible. The worst part about this lesson is that I already knew it. This is one of Death Battle's most famous principles. Show characters at their maximum potential. I have known about this principle and explained it and defended it for nearly 5 years. So for me to forget it when I'm analyzing a matchup is inexcusable. I got lucky this time around that my mistake didn't matter. Because I undervalued both characters equally, I was still able to reach the correct conclusion. But if either of these characters had been going up against someone else, someone who didn't have a Superman level durability feat, then that misstep on my part could have been disastrous. A Superman level durability feat is a game-changing feat. And if I misinterpret it, then I run the very real risk of picking the wrong victor in a death battle, and that would be very unfortunate. So, in the future, I just need to remember to look at characters at their maximum potential. This is another very basic step, but like I said, the basics are oftentimes the most important part to get right. And that's just about everything I learned, which means we've reached the end of the video. This review was quite different, both from my previous reviews and from other Death Battle fan content, but I hope that you guys found enjoyment in it nonetheless. I know this video didn't really focus on the more fun aspects of Death Battle, such as the animation, humor, or characters, and was instead about the analysis and research, but that's because those are the aspects that mean the most to me. I really want to develop my abilities in those fields, and these videos and Death Battle are the perfect medium in which to do that. So I hope you guys find some interest in all that. And for those of you looking to develop your own critical analysis capabilities, I hope that these videos prove of use to you. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Like if you enjoyed the video, comment if you have something to say, subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, have a fantastic day.